Hello, Tony here again. Well, something not totally different, but a little different to what we've looked at before, and that's dealing with pop-outs within Microsoft Flight Sim. I did a video on pop-outs in X-Plane a while ago, and that video was very popular. Lots of people asking questions and lots of views on that particular video. Because obviously people are still struggling with how to get their head around the way that the pop-outs work with the Air Manager overlays. So in this video we're going to handle how the pop-outs work and talk about some of the tools that you may or may not want to use within Microsoft Flight Sim to make that a little easier for you, and where the sim is right now with its use of pop-outs. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper than we did in the X-Plane 11 video, and I'm going to talk about the overlays because there's been some confusion around the overlays and the panel graphics and transparency and what to do with that and what program to use to create those and everything. So we're going to do a very simple basic one just to show you the steps that are required, and you'll see what's involved. It's really quite simple. Once you mastered one, or the principle for one, it's basically the same for everything, whether that be a GNS navigator or a G1000 screen. Whatever you want to use as a pop-out, just means that the opening or the transparency section is a different shape, size, or whatever within the panel. So we're sitting in the C172 G1000 model in the sim, and we're going to start by popping out the windows. So you can pop out the windows when they're cold and dark like this, or you can turn them on to see them, but really it doesn't really make a lot of difference. And the way that you do that is you put your mouse over the screen. Have we got mouse turned on here? Let's just make sure that we have, otherwise you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got the mouse cursor. So within this screen, and obviously the MFD screen over on this side, these are the two that we're going to be popping out. Is you put your mouse over the screen, and then all you have to do is press the so a normal left click of your mouse. I don't know if you can just see that there, but you get the little hand finger pointer, and then while you're doing that, you want to be holding down the right Alt key. So that's the Alt key that's normally just to the right of the space bar on most keyboards. So the right Alt key, and you see that when you hover, in fact I'm not even clicking the mouse now, so now I've clicked the mouse the first time, you see, I'm not actually holding it at all, so I've clicked it and I've activated that finger in effect. But if you need to, hold down the mouse key to get the finger to be there, and then when you press the right Alt key, you see it changes to a plus. So all you need to then do is when you get the plus, you just normal left click, and there you go, you've got, because that's the PFD one that we clicked, we got our PFD pop out there. And then we do the same with the MFD there. So again, we click to get the little hand up, and then we get the plus symbol up, and then we click again and we get the MFD. Now you see this is a little different to in what we get with X-Plane, or those of us that are used to using the pop-outs in X-Plane. It pops them out into two separate windows. Within Microsoft Flight Sim, it pops them into this same window. So effectively, whatever pop-outs you need to do, if you've got 3 or 4 to do, you need to pop them all out first into this one bigger window, and then we're going to separate them. So you can see, if I make that, or try and make that bigger, you can see just at the top here on both of them, there's a cross to obviously close one off, so you can get rid of one if you've added one that you didn't want. There's one to make it obviously large, and then there's this little circular like magnifying glass with a plus. What that actually does is that actually pops them out separately. So if we do that one with the MFD, you can see now it's popped the MFD out separately, and it's left the PFD where it was, and it's now filling up all that screen. So let's make that a bit smaller again. You can resize them just as you can in X-Plane, make them any old size out of aspect ratio. We don't worry about that too much at the moment, because we're going to drag them to fit within our Air Manager overlay bezel in just a moment. So there's our two pop-outs. That's how you get the pop-outs. It's a bit of a pain. There are a few tools. There's a couple of tools on the Microsoft Flight Sim forums that a couple of people have developing to help make this a little bit easier, but they still require a little bit of polish yet, in my opinion. They do help a little. There's another one built into Windows itself called Fancy Zones that some people use to handle their pop-outs, and there are some other bits of software that you can buy, applications, and there might even be some free ones. I haven't researched them all, that help you manage pop-out windows, not specifically for flight sims, but just Windows in general. None of these solutions, I've yet to find one that is ideal, and so the current solution for handling pop-outs in Microsoft is a little manual, and it needs to be automated, in my opinion, just almost the same way as it is in X-Plane. That said, X-Plane itself is not perfect, because with X-Plane it's not on a per aircraft basis. So when you pop the G1000 out, whenever you open an aircraft with the G1000, it will appear in the same location that you had it for the other aircraft. Some of my panels require the G1000 to be in a slightly different position, and for that matter, radio stacks. You may have a radio stack with a 530 and a 430, where the 430 is under the 530, so it's lower in the stack, and then another aircraft where the 430, there is only a 430 and say a second com radio, which doesn't require a pop out, in which case the 430 needs to be higher up in the stack, so it's a different position on the screen. And so X-Plane 11 does not handle that per aircraft, so you have to, although the sizing is still correct, assuming that you've kept the overlay the same size, you still have to shift its position because it's not in the same location. So that's a little annoying. I did ask if that could be a feature that's being could be incorporated into X-Plane 11, but as yet we haven't seen anything. Let's hope that X-Plane 12 has that incorporated. In Microsoft Flight Sim, there is no per aircraft, there is no thing. Every time you load an aircraft, the pop-outs are not popped out anymore. They're, just as we saw when we first started this video, they're within the units themselves, and you have to go through this process of popping them all out into the bigger window and then separating them out. So there are some, as I said, there's some tools to help. There, one particular tool that does automate that using some analysis of the pop-outs, but yeah, I think that still needs a little bit of work before I'm probably prepared to say that I'd recommend using it just yet. But yeah, it's out there for everyone to go have a play with and see what you think of it. At the moment, I'm personally going to wait, and hopefully it will get better. Or the ideal solution, I guess, is that Microsoft actually put it into the sim, so that basically the sim remembers if you've popped out a window of a certain size in a certain location on one of your screens, because let's face it, most flight simmers have more than one screen, certainly Air Manager users, then it should remember the fact that you had it open last time, and next time you open that same aircraft, it should open it in exactly the same location and of the same size. That would be an absolute perfect ideal solution. I don't think there's too much to ask. It's quite a simple feature, really, but as yet we haven't seen it in the sim. So on to our Air Manager pop-out panel then. So you've probably seen this bit before. I've got Air Manager here open on another monitor. What I think I'll do is I'll open my 3-panel view. So there we go. So this is sort of set up similarly to how I do some of my videos, and it kind of helps illustrate the layout that we've got here. I've actually got more than 3 screens, but for the purposes of this, let's say we've got the 3 screens there. We'll have the sim sort of front outside view normally on the top one that you see where we've got the pop-outs on at the moment, the in-sim view, and then the other 2 will be for my Air Manager panels, my left panel and my right-hand side Air Manager panel. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll open this one. So what I've set up here very basically is I've just added a panel which gives us a black background panel, and all I've added is I've added one instrument, and that's the stock. I don't personally use the stock one, I've got my own one, but this is the stock G1000 overlay, which works quite nicely. But in terms of the functionality, we're not really talking about that too much here. This is more to illustrate how you handle the PNG images and the transparency and the pop-outs themselves. So the first thing we need to do here, you see a lot of users complain, oh, I'm getting a white screen, or I'm getting a black screen, or I'm not getting the right thing. So we've got our two pop-outs on the top screen here, and we've got our pop-out on the bottom display. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'll drag the Air Manager window down, and we can talk about some of the settings within Air Manager. So we'll leave that one. Might have to close that. Yeah. So let's make Air Manager last. So there's our panel. I've called it C172G1000, but you can call it whatever you want, obviously, in this name box here. So let's scroll down to where the important settings are. So you can see here at the moment these two are quite important. So we've got background color is set to black, and then we've got these ones called layout, solid color, transparent, and custom image. Notice this one is titled background color, this one is titled background mode. It's important that we distinguish the difference between what these two are doing. So the background color, by its definition, it seems fairly obvious, but I've seen people thinking that this is for color only, but there's a little trick that I'm going to show you in a minute that some of you may already know, but anyone who's watching this to try and get theirs working because they're struggling with it probably will not know. You can see here you can choose a color, so I've just chose some rather random orange there, and you can see that makes our panel background orange when I scroll up to what the panel. So if we were to run that panel, we'd end up with an orange background. No dramas. Let's choose something a little bit more in keeping with an instrument panel, and choose I was actually looking for the grey. There we go. So there we go. There's a more typical instrument panel color of just a plain flat grey. So that's what we could do. Now, what people think they can do is choose that grey and then select this transparent option here. When everyone talks about transparency, they take that word as transparency, and they see the word transparent here and they think that's the setting that they need. Well, if we were to run that panel now, you'll see what we get. So now, because I've selected background mode as transparent, it's basically made everything transparent. So you can see our Air Manager that we've got that's still running in the background underneath our panel that run over the top of it is still showing there, but we wanted a grey instrument panel. So why isn't that working? Well, because we don't use transparent. So let's close that. What the background mode does is it selects, as it says in the name, the mode of operation. So if we want to use a solid color, which is what we select up here with a color, then we select solid color. We run the panel, we get our grey, but oh, we've got no transparency. We can't see our desktop through there. We should be able to see the desktop, so that's still no good. Close that one off. We may want to make the panel a little bit nicer looking, so it's got some screws and some placards and various shading and whatever we decide that we want to include to make a slightly nicer looking panel than just a plain grey. We could use a custom image in that case, our own PNG image that we would create to do that. So that's an option that we're going to look at in a minute. And then the other one is layout. Now layout is effectively the same as custom image, other than the fact that layout, which we're not going to go into today, you can see it's grayed out now, so I can't now select it after it was initially selected. Layout is something that you select when the custom image is already predefined as part of a panel. So if you were to create your own panel over in the Create Edit tab and create those custom images as part of that, you set that up as a layout, and so that when you select layout here, all of that's taken care of for you. The custom image is loaded, you don't have to go select where it is. When you select custom image here, you then have to click this and select the custom image, whereas it's already embedded in the panel as part of layout. As I said, we're not going to go into that today, so let's forget about that for a minute. But effectively what layout is doing is loading just a custom image, we're just doing it more of a manual way here, rather than it being embedded within the panel folder structure itself, a bit like you would embed resources or a preview image within the folder structure of an instrument that you were developing. So let's concentrate on custom image. Now with custom image, when I select custom image, you'll see that if I don't, let's run it and show you. So you can see now our grey is still there, okay? So this still comes into play if there's nothing sitting over the top of it, alright? So transparent is as it says, it'll be totally transparent, it'll ignore this, right? So no matter what you've got this set to, if you've got that set to transparent, the whole panel will be transparent. Solid color will obviously just give you whatever you've got set there. And custom image, if you've selected one, will be over the top of that color. So if you selected a color there and that's the same size as that, you will never see that color because this custom image will be sitting over the top of it. So that's like, I can kind of describe it as the background color is the very background, then the custom image is the layer above that. Okay, so what we can do is we can create ourselves a custom image. Now the best way I find to do this, or an easy way of doing this that I'm going to show you, just so that you get the size right and you can perfect whichever method you think is easiest in terms of working it out. You can write all the coordinates down or try and figure out what they are in terms of or do it by a trial and error, which is what I started to do, and I thought there's got to be an easier way than this. And so I came up with, or I sort of semi-stumbled across this method when I was doing some other work. And I thought, oh, that might be useful for a way of creating panels. At least it gets you in the ballpark or very close to where you need to be. So the important thing to note here is, well, we'll talk about the other setting in a minute because that's important when it comes back to our custom image, right? So we need to create a custom image with a transparency, okay? So let's open, I've got one open already here somewhere. Let's drag that in. So this is my C172 G1000 panel. You can see it's got some placards and various other pieces, but importantly, it's got this transparent area in the middle for the desktop to show through, or the pop-up that we're going to pop out, or that we've already popped out of the sim to show through, and our bezel's going to sit over the top of this. And again, if this would be a little bit smaller, if it was a GNS 530 or GNS 430, whatever you want to use. But this is what it should look like, right? So this is a program called GIMP. It's just a graphics program. You can do the same in Photoshop and many other. Microsoft Paint, I think. Look, the important thing to know is it's got to support transparency. So this is typical of what you would see when you set up a transparent. I can't speak for every program, but of all the ones that I've used, you normally get this like checkerboard to illustrate. It's very difficult to obviously illustrate transparency, so they tend to use this checkerboard just to sort of say, okay, this is the transparent area, so when you save the image, this will be the bit that will be transparent. So let's close that, and in fact, yeah, let's close that, but we'll keep the program open the minute and slide that over to here. And And then what we'll do is we will open our panel again. Where's our manager gone? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tool that's built into Windows. And I know a lot of people use it because I've seen it used for a lot of the preview images, because it's very handy for creating preview images. When something's already open, you can just take an image, and that is the snipping tool. So I've only got the basic snipping tool here. I know there's a more advanced one. My son keeps telling me about why am I using this one, why don't I use the better one, because this does what I need it to do, so I don't need to go explore the better one with more features, but I am aware there is one, and I believe it will still do what I'm about to show you. So what I'm going to do here is now I've so I just realised that I had that on a monitor that I didn't see. So I've put that now on this this other right hand side monitor so we can see it. So it's just the basic Windows snipping tool. So all you need to do is, I think in the settings you can turn off where is that, options? Yeah, see yeah, so where it says show selection ink after snips are captured, you untick that. Otherwise, whatever color you've got selected in here, you'll end up with that color border around your snip, and it's just something else you've got to get rid of afterwards. So I untick that in the options, and then in the mode here we can just do window snip. So that will capture the whole window. You can do a rectangular snip, and then you can just draw a rectangle and it will snip that. I'm sure you all know how to use the Windows snipping tool. So Windows snip. Oh, let's get rid of our manager. Right, let's try again. Right, so this time I'm going to Windows snip the panel with my bezel on it. So I've already placed a bezel. So now what I've basically done here, and then I'm going to save that capture. Let's call it capture 77. I don't know. We're going to use it in a minute. So we're done with that now. So what that's effectively done, that's created a PNG image for us. So I'll open that. Capture 77 and slide it on here. In fact, what we'll do first of all is we'll close this panel. So we'll slide our GIMP window in again now. And you can see I do out a little bit. That's what we've captured. So that is exactly the same size as the panel. So it's already, you can may or may not be able to see, but it says 1920 by 1080 up here. So it's already captured a 1920 by 1080 window for us. So that's exactly the size that we want it to be for our panel. And it's already got the bezel on there. Now we don't want the bezel on there because that's going to come up as part of the instrument. But what that now does is it gives us the exact location of where that bezel is on the screen. So all we now need to do is, in GIMP and other tools, you could just use a rectangular tool. I'm only going to do this very basically. You might be a bit more precise with this and zoom in a little bit so you get it exactly spot on. Is I'm just going to draw an area there on the where the display would be. And in GIMP, what you need to do is just make sure that transparency is already got an alpha channel turned on. Sometimes that hasn't, so you need to make sure that there's an alpha channel or a transparency layer turned on in whatever application you're using. So now I've selected that, all I have to do is literally hit delete, and now I've effectively got rid of the center of the G1000 display. So I've now got my transparent area. Now the other thing, of course, is we don't want the bezel there. So because the bezel's there already, what we can do is we can just go, we can invert that selection. So now the rest of the panel is selected. We can steal that grey colour that we've got, then we can just use, which is very crude what I'm doing here, but it demonstrates the point. Make that a nice big, there we go. You get the idea. So we've got rid of our G1000 bezel, and now we've literally got just our panel, which could be a bit fancier than this, as I showed earlier. But we've got our panel of the right size with the cutout in exactly the position that we know it's going to be in. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and save that. So we'll overwrite that file name. I don't need to reuse that. I'm going to delete this after we're finished. But you can call it whatever you want and save it obviously wherever you want. And then we'll close GIMP. We don't need that anymore. We don't need our graphics program anymore. Then within Air Manager, let's open Air Manager again. Under Custom Image, we select that image and we go find our Capture 77, and you can see now that's where it's appeared, and there's our grey border with the cutout around it. Now it looks exactly the same as it was there, and when I run it, it will be exactly the same. Because there's one thing we've overlooked. So it looks like, oh, that didn't work for me. What have I done wrong? Well, because you've got the settings in Air Manager wrong. So this is, again, another common mistake that people make. They've got their transparency all set and they think they haven't, or they think there's an issue with it. But that's because we've still got the background set to grey. So the background colour is the layer on top of the desktop. So you've got the desktop, you've got the background colour, and you've got the custom image. So the background color and the custom image are obviously generated by Air Manager, and the desktop is just the desktop. So the pop-out obviously sits on top of the desktop. So it's the desktop, the pop-out, the grey background color, and then the custom image, if you were thinking about it in terms of 4 layers. So because the grey, this grey color background comes after the actual pop-out, if you were to put the pop out there, you wouldn't see anything. And as you can see, we've still, when we run the panel, we were still getting grey there rather than seeing the desktop through there. So what we need to do is we need to set transparency. Well, we already know that when we go to transparency here, even though we've got the custom image selected there, when we run the panel, as we did earlier, we'll do it again just for showing that we're still getting the same result. You can see we've still got this transparent all over the screen, which is what we don't want. So we still want our custom image, but we have to select transparency in the background color. Now you open that and you think to yourself, well, how do I select transparency there? Which one of these is the transparency option? You select custom color. Again, it's not that obvious which one of these is the transparency. Well, the way to get transparency is you slide your opacity down to 0. When you do save, it doesn't actually say that there. When you do save, oh, I know what I forgot to do. Sorry, you have to slide all the sliders down to 0. So yeah, everything, all the sliders fully down, then click save, and you can see now within the background color it says transparent. So we've chosen no color. We could choose a color, and then what will happen, oh, that's a good idea actually, because we can choose orange and we can show how our custom display is looking. So that's saying that the whole background is going to be orange, but because we've got the custom image selected, when we run the panel, remember what I said? The custom image sits on top of the background color. So the background color we selected was orange. The custom image sits on top of that orange, so the grey covers that, but obviously it leaves the transparent section in the middle that we've left open, and then whatever instruments we've got added to the panel, in this case just the G1000 bezel, sits on top of that. So we go back, we select transparent, we know how to do that now. We bring all the sliders down to 0, and we click save, and it says transparent there. So now what we get, and just demonstrate, I'll move the Air Manager window off to this monitor to the side there, and we'll run that panel. And now what we get is we get our G1000 bezel with our grey custom image that we selected, and we've got transparent, because that's the background color that we've selected. So it's important that when you're using a custom image, which is what in most cases you're going to want to do, or a layout of course, which I said we're not going to cover in the scope of this video, but either of those two options, layout or custom image, you want to set that background color to transparent if you're using pop-outs. Can't stress that enough. That's the most important aspect of it that I see people falling foul of, not understanding quite the interaction of what these background color and background mode are doing. It's that simple, really. It's not complicated. It's just an understanding thing. Once you get it, it's a piece of cake. So that's our G1000 panel that we've got running there now, and it's such a simple simple thing now to go up to the sim window, get our G1000 pop out that we popped out earlier, and we lay that over the window. Now, one of the steps I will tell you before we do that, it's exactly the same, but we'll go back to the settings that will make that step a little bit easier. So let's just go back into the, we can do that on the other panel monitor. Sorry for switching monitors around here, but so on the Air Manager, so on the right hand monitor at the bottom now, we're in Air Manager here. You can see there's some settings just above where we've set the background, and that's in this window preferences section. We've got this locked, always on top, and click through. Okay, you see click through's grayed out at the moment, alright? And that's because we've got the panel running. If I turn the panel off, you can see click through's not grayed out anymore. So it does say here, very faintly, click through allows you to access the windows that are located below the panel only if on Windows and with DirectX rendering enabled. So one other last thing to talk about, in the settings here you've got your graphics API. If you leave it to automatic, it should select DirectX, but you can force it to select DirectX. If you force it to select OpenGL, none of this will work. The transparency thing does not work with OpenGL 2. So I leave mine set to automatic. So that's another thing that you have to make sure. I think by default Air Manager is set to automatic, but I'm not 100% sure about that, and it's always worthwhile checking. It's just in the settings tab here, or you can get to the settings tab another way from in this home tab, and that's just click the Air Manager icon at the very top of the tree here, and you get to that same setting page. Just check that your graphics API is set to automatic or DirectX. Okay, so with the panel not running, if we click that click through, we don't need click through in this instance. What click through enables that transparent window in the section for touch type displays. So if you're using something like the GTN 750, which is a touch screen display, or something like the G3X or something that has a touch interface where you need to touch the screen, then this click-through allows your finger, if you're using a touch screen or even the mouse, to actually click through that transparent section of your pop-out and enable that click or that touch to make its way through to the pop-out window that's sitting behind. So in other words, you can still use it. If you don't have that ticked, then the click-through won't work. But having even though this particular instrument doesn't need the click-through, as the GNSs don't, it's always handy leaving it ticked for this reason, and I'll show you why. Because it enables you to still manipulate the pop-out through the window. Let me show you the difference. We'll leave it turned off, and we'll turn the panel on. So with the panel on, if I drag down my PFD now, you can see if I drop it in the transparent section of the window, okay, my apologies, what I forgot to do was what I'm going to tell you to do next is, and what you always want to do with your Manager panels, is tick locked and always on top. So what that does is it keeps the Air Manager panel always on top. There's no other risk of any other pop-up windows popping up over the top of it while you're flying. And locked stops you from inadvertently moving it. So you can move the, if it's not locked, lock means is you can see, because it's not locked, I can click and hold on that panel and I can move it around. If I click locked, now I'm clicking and dragging and I can't move it. It's locked it in wherever position I left it in. So what we'll do is we'll say display 2, I think that one is, yeah, and we'll lock it, and now it's locked in place. We can't move it. Always on top, as I said, just keeps it as the top window. So what you can do is you can not have these ticked, mess about with your panel, and then have to go into Air Manager and tick these after you've finished. But who wants to faff around with that every time? So I leave these all ticked, and then I run the panel. Oh, sorry, the other thing I wanted to show you, without click-through clicked, but with those other two ticked, I'll show you the difference. So you drag the panel. Then once I let go of that panel, I can't get it anymore. I'm trying to drag the corner or click the top to move it. Because I've not enabled click through, once I've let go of it under there, I can't grab it anymore because I can't click through the transparent section of the G1000 here to get to my pop-up. So I have to mess about by closing the panel so then I can get back to it and move it up out of the way, then open my panel again, and then I move it down again. But the moment I kind of line up with where I want to be, and then I want to come here to drag it, I can't because I've not enabled the click through. So the key is just tick the locked and the always on top from the very beginning and the click through. Then when we run the panel this time, because the click through is enabled, I should be able to just line the top of my box up with the top corner, and now you can see I can grab this bottom corner and I can drag it. Now you can see the actual PFD in this instance, you don't always get this, but you can see there's a bit of a black border running. Now that depends on how you've moved it around when you initially popped it out, what you did with the aspect ratio and how you mess it up. The important thing to note is you're sizing the window, you're not sizing the actual PFD display, because that will auto size in a minute. So we're sizing just this window into the cutout of the PFD. Looks about right, and there you go. See, it auto pops into the right size there once we let go. So I might not have that exactly perfect, but once you get it how you want it, that is your G1000 overlay over the top of your instrument. And you can do the same with the MFD. I'm not going to show the MFD as well, but it's the same process. You just drag and move that MFD. In my case, I would drag that down onto this right hand side monitor with my other panel overlay, and then I would have an MFD on there as well. So that's the essence of how all the intricacies of the settings within Air Manager and how the pop-ups work. Like I said, it's quite simple. It just takes a bit of getting your head around what all those different settings are and how those pop-ups work and the different layers. Once you understand that, it's really not that hard. And you can create whatever cutouts and transparencies you need on custom images to act as your overlay, as long as you've got that color set to transparent. So there you go, a little overview on pop-outs within Microsoft Flight Sim. A lot of that, what I showed, the principles are exactly the same for X-Plane. Some of those things are unique to Microsoft Flight Sim, of course, but the principle of the layers and everything in Air Manager is exactly the same for all the sims. Hopefully that helps some who have been struggling with getting their heads around how the creation of the PNGs and exactly what settings to set in Air Manager, and how to get your pop-outs working. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Thanks. Bye.